All right, today we are tackling a plant that is just a beautiful, beautiful paradox, the air plant. It's supposed to be the easiest plant in the world to own, right? And yet so many of us end up with this sad, brown, crunchy thing. So if you've ever felt personally betrayed by an air plant, this is the survival guide you've been waiting for.
So let's just start with the big mystery here. How can a plant that supposedly lives on nothing but air be so easy to kill? Well, the answers we're about to find out is hiding in plain sight. And spoiler alert, it has almost nothing to do with air and absolutely everything to do with water.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The real secret to an air plant's life isn't in the air it's breathing. Nope, it's on the surface of its leaves. It's this really cool, specialized adaptation that makes them completely different from pretty much any other plant you have in your house. I want you to meet the trichome. These are these tiny, almost invisible scales that cover the leaves, and they are the absolute key to everything. You can think of them like the plant's mouth and stomach, all rolled into one. They absorb every single drop of water and all the nutrients it needs. So that silvery, fuzzy look you see on some air plants, that's not dust. It's a whole forest of these tiny little sponges. It's the very engine of its survival. And this right here really gets to the core of it. A normal plant, it has soil that acts as a filter, as a buffer for what its roots are taking in. But an air plant? Its leaves are completely exposed to whatever is in that water. And that's why you just can't treat them like a typical houseplant. Now, if you only remember one thing from this entire explainer, please make it this. Not all air plants are created equal. Seriously, cracking the air plant code really comes down to understanding one thing. Do you have a Mesic or a Xeric type? Because believe me, their needs are polar opposites.
Let's think of them like this. On one side, you have Mesic plants. These are your rainforest dwellers. They're typically greener, smoother, and they're adapted to really humid places, so they have fewer of those trichomes. On the other side, you have Xeric plants, the desert survivors. They're silvery, they're fuzzy, and they're covered in a thick coat of trichomes to grab every last drop of moisture they can find. So right now, go look at your plant. What is it? Is it a lush green rainforest dweller or a tough, silvery desert survivor?
You see, the way a plant looks is a direct clue to what it needs. The Mesic plants, coming from the rainforest, they lose water really fast, so they need more frequent watering. But the Xeric plants, from the desert, they're built to conserve water, so they need way less. Treating them the same is just a recipe for disaster.
All right, so now that you've hopefully figured out which team your plant is on, let's build the playbook for keeping it perfectly hydrated. And I promise it's actually simpler than you think, but the details really matter.
Now, you might be tempted to just mist your plant, and while that feels right, it's often just not enough. Soaking is really the gold standard. Why? Because it gives those tiny trichomes enough time to fully open up and get a really good long drink. Just submerge your whole plant, let it hang out for about an hour, and then take it out. It's really that simple.
But what kind of water should you use? Well, rainwater is literally perfect. Filtered or well water is also great. If you have to use tap water, just let it sit out for a day. That way the chlorine can evaporate. And here is a huge warning. Never ever use distilled water. It has zero minerals and will actually pull nutrients out of your plant, or sodium softened water. That stuff is straight up toxic to them.
That old rule of soak once a week is just a starting point. It's not a hard and fast rule. You need to think of yourself as a plant scientist here, observing your own environment. Is your home really hot and dry? Well, you might need to water more often. Is it cool and humid? You can probably get away with watering less. The real key here is to adapt.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about watering, but this step is arguably the most critical part of the whole process. If you get this right, you are on your way to a happy, thriving air plant. But if you get it wrong, you're probably headed for heartbreak.
Get this. The #1 killer of air plants isn't a lack of water. It's crown rot. And it doesn't happen because you gave it too much water, but because the plant stays wet for too long after you water it. So what even is crown rot? Well, it happens when water gets trapped down in the dense base of the plant's leaves. And with no airflow, that water just sits there and stagnates, and it creates the perfect breeding ground for rot. The center of your plant will turn black and mushy, and honestly, by the time you notice that telltale smell, it's usually too late.
4 hours. Remember this number. This is your magic number. After you're done watering your air plant, it must be completely 100% bone dry within 4 hours. Any longer than that, and you are officially entering the danger zone for rot.
So how in the world do you hit that 4-hour window? It's a really simple 3-step process. First, give it a little shake, just to get the excess water off. Second, and this part is non-negotiable, place it upside down. Gravity is going to be your best friend here, helping drain all that water from the base. And third, create a breeze. A small fan is perfect. It mimics the natural airflow these guys would get living up in the trees.
Okay, now that you have the rules down, it's time to become a bit of a plant detective. Your air plant is actually going to give you some really clear visual cues when something's not right. You just need to know how to read them.
So if you see this, wrinkled leaves that are kind of curling in on themselves, maybe with some crispy tips, your plant is basically sending out an SOS. It is thirsty. That curling action is the plant physically trying to conserve every last bit of moisture it has left.
The fix, thankfully, is pretty simple. Give it a life-saving soak for a few hours. Think of it like a spa day for your thirsty plant. After that, just adjust your schedule going forward. Maybe you need to water a little more often, or let it soak for a bit longer, and you'll have a happy, hydrated plant in no time.
Now, for the other end of the spectrum, if you see this, a dark, mushy base, and leaves that are just falling right out of the center, you are looking at the dreaded signs of rot.
This right here is an emergency. You need to immediately pull out any of those soft, black leaves and get that plant into a dry, breezy spot upside down as fast as you can. Now, I'll be honest, advanced rot can be really tough to beat, but don't give up hope just yet. With some quick action and a real focus on mastering that drying technique, you might just be able to save it.
And that brings us right back to the most important question. Go look at your plant. Is it green and smooth, or is it silvery and fuzzy? Knowing its identity, knowing its true nature, is the first and most powerful step to giving it the care it actually needs. Because once you know if you have a rainforest dweller or a desert survivor, you will never look at your air plant the same way again.